Top 12 right-hand mans of One Piece. And if you're wondering who I'm talking about, it's basically just all of these guys, plus a few others. I'll be referring to the versions of these characters when they were in their vice captain role, and no Sabo because he does nothing. Without further ado, let's start with number 12. Beppo. Alright, I know the whole joke in the community is to say that God, Usopp, Buggy, and all the other fodder characters solo the verse, but let's be serious here, guys. Beppo is just not that strong. Until he goes Sulong form and solos half the Blackbeard pirates, including Teach. This is actually a Yonko level feat, and with his best interpretation, Beppo tops this list. Number 11, here we go. Charlotte Katakuri. So I've talked about Kat many times on this channel, and I even made a whole video on him being fodder. You may be expecting me to say that he's weaker than Ulti or something like that, but in order to fully convince people why he's ass, I'm not even going to use that scaling. All I will do is simply refer to the events of the story and show why he's no match for the people above him. For the sake of argument, let's just say that the Gear 4 that fought Katakuri and the one that started on Rooftop are the same thing. That's not true at all because Luffy trained in between, but again, I just want to put the nail in the coffin. Zoro is relative to Rooftop Gear 4 as shown by his feats, not to mention he blocked a joint attack from 2 Yonko, something Katakuri literally cannot do. It was stated Big Mom's entire crew could not defeat her when she had her hunger tantrums, yet Zoro blocks an attack from an even stronger version of her, plus hybrid Kaido. Even so, King can beat up that same Zoro, and no, it wasn't just his durability, Zoro was actually losing. Luffy then goes on to cliff the Rooftop 5 when he awakens Advanced Conqueror's Haki, a feat his crewmate would replicate as well. In his Ashura form, Zoro is putting all of his power into the attack, which is verbatim what King of Hell is. And while King versus KOH is a slaughter, he can still clash with the Vice Captain in his slower form, mind you. Simply put, being extremely generous to Katakuri means he's on the level of the Rooftop 5, who Zoro surpasses with King of Hell. Then King can keep up with this same Zoro. Very straightforward, no ulti beating Katakuri, Luffy surpassing him in base, none of that. I just described the events of the story and we came to the same conclusion. Katakuri is the weakest first commander, even when I glazed him, bro. Now this is just one facet of the argument. So if you're going to say stuff like, narratively it doesn't make sense for Kat to be that weak, or you have to take into account their individual powers, I have a video right here that explains it. Actually, no, let me do that last one. Number 10, Killer. I know I said earlier that Kat was equal to Gear 4 on the Rooftop, but that's definitely not true, nor is it my actual opinion. Moving on. Number 9, King the fucking Wildfire. As said, King was already able to press the version of Zoro that could block an attack from 2 Emperors. Yes, his special durability did help, however he's shown knocking Mosshead through buildings and trading blows with him. After the awakening, yeah, he did get clapped in 3 attacks, but he was still able to clash swords with Zoro. Plus, King's speed form did blitz the swordsman completely. I already hear people screaming, "Future Sight, Future Sight, Future Sight!" So let's talk about hacks. Future Sight can be blitzed as seen on the Rooftop, with Luffy, Zoro, and King being faster than the character that showed this. King also has fire that can eviscerate Mochi, in addition to magma. He can fly, has better regen with his Devil Fruit, and an invincibility mode. Katakuri is not winning. King is already far faster and has better AP even with his flames on. Also, the Lunarian was going to win against Rooftop Zoro eventually, Killer being weaker than that. Number 8, Marco the Phoenix. Marco versus King is heavily debated throughout the community, with both sides having good points. Before we get into that though, I just want to say that Marco is not Admiral level, whatever that means. Many like to overrate the Phoenix due to him fighting the Admirals at Marineford. However, not only were these Admirals suppressed, but he also did no damage. Marco did 2v1 King and Queen, However, these were weaker versions of them, with King having his flames on the entire time. It's still impressive due to him healing the whole battlefield with his flames, and he did blitz both of them. That's sort of the main reason I put Marco at this spot. He already has better feats than Katakuri, being able to fight with a Yonko, and he probably has more stamina than King. Not only that, but the blue flames would play a big role in their bout. They heal Marco, but can also counter King's flames and block his magma. This is all backed up by the Whitebeard pirates allegedly being the strongest crew pre-time skip, Marco being second in command. So while that doesn't mean he's the strongest vice captain because strongest crew has a bunch of other factors, it does help his standing in this ranking. The swordsmen of the Straw Hat Pirates destroyed King, and unlike Marco, it wasn't close. Upon awakening King of Hell, the Lunarian lost in 3 named attacks, with Zoro taking barely any damage after this as well. The only threat to Mosshead in this fight was his own sword, as he was running low on Haki. Many use this to say Zoro has ass stamina, but remember, this is his last fight. After everything he did in the raid, he is just now running out of Haki. Full health Advanced Conqueror Zoro would body King with even more ease. There's also new talk of him being a fraud because he's losing to Lucci. It's from Twitter, bruh. I'm not even gonna entertain that. Number 6, Shiryu. Why the fuck is Shiryu here? Don't worry, Aokiji will come later. While I hate ranking characters based on like just narrative, I really have no choice this time. For the longest time, I have subscribed to the premise that Shiryu of the Rain will be a future matchup for Zoro. The only solid evidence I have to back is a past SBS. Here, Oda expressed that he picked the strongest members of each crew for the vice captain color spread. This was before Aokiji was confirmed to be a Titanic captain, so I'll count it. The only other thing I'll say is that since he is the second strongest, he should be able to take the same hits that the other Titanic captains took from Garp. This would include Galaxy Divide, named attacks from other commanders, etc. Number 5, Ben Beckman. Ben is an odd one, but when taking into account his best interpretation, you can place him pretty high. Obviously, we all remember his interaction with Kizaru at Marineford. This moment is like cap as fuck, because Ben stops an admiral, but then the admiral just keeps going as if nothing happened. First off, you could take this as Kizaru being mildly pressed. Even if he wasn't terrified, it would still be impressive for Ben, as none of the Straw Hats on Egghead gave him this same scare, except for Luffy. Second, you could also interpret the interaction as just their laid back natures. Like when the admiral jumped and attacked anyway, Ben wasn't like, fuck! He just looks to the air and lets it slide, yet he could jump to that height and interfere. The latter explanation is also backed by multiple magazine/book statements claiming that the admirals fear Ben's strength. The former admiral, I say that every time when I refer to him, the former admiral is extremely powerful. Not only has he broken from the title, meaning the Ben Beckman statements don't apply to him, but he also got stronger in his fight with Akainu. It's been seen many times that fighting tougher and more powerful opponents heightens one's strength. This was shown when Luffy fought Katakuri, learning Future Sight and surpassing all of his previous feats in only 9 hours. Applying this same logic to Aokiji has insane implications. Sure, he did lose, but if his growth is anything like the main characters, then fighting Akainu for 10 days should have exponentially extended his power, to the point where now he can solo most of the Blackbeard pirates, a feat only matched by Beppo. See, I told you guys. Some say he can beat Teach himself. I don't give much credence to this because why would Blackbeard of all people recruit someone who's stronger than him? But regardless, Kuzan is easily the second strongest of the Blackbeard pirates, with his performance against Garp being better than Shiryu's. Not to mention that whole fight wasn't even with Aokiji at full strength. He was conflicted the entire time because he was fighting his former teacher, and confliction can seriously weaken One Piece characters, with it being pointed out in that same fight twice. Number 3, Silver's Rayleigh. The Dark King is on an even higher level. It was basically stated that Blackbeard would have lost while Rayleigh was in his prime. Teach was scared of him on Amazon Lily, even when the old man said the captain would win. To be fair though, this fear was justified as Blackbeard was present for the crew battles between Roger and Whitebeard. That's really all I can say about Ray's ranking without getting into our next placement, number 2. Mihawk. The world's greatest swordsman cuts into 2nd place. Mihawk's power in comparison to Rayleigh is a bit contentious, but there is an argument to be made in Hawkeye's favor. 12 years ago was when Shanks and Mihawk had their daily duels, and it's implied that at the time, they were still the strongest swordsmen. Rayleigh was 66 12 years ago, so he could have still been in his peak. After all, characters in similar realms of power such as Big Mom or Kaido are stated to be in their primes while in their 60s as well. Besides that, there's nothing to really scale where Prime Ray's limit is. He could very well be up there with Roger and Garp, but for now, I just don't see it, and this is the most concrete scaling we have for him. Number 1. Whitebeard. The vice captain of the Rocks Pirates takes the top spot once again because he was on the top of my Yonko list too. At this point in his life, Newgate is only 2 years away from his prime self, which is closer than Mihawk is to prime Whitebeard. Let me explain. The current day Whitebeard was stated to be the strongest man in the world. This would include Mihawk, Shanks, Kaido, etc. At the very most, the strength gap between Mihawk and Oldbeard is like by an inch, but it would still put him below Vice Captain Whitebeard. It's said by Thatch, the crew's doctor, that Newgate's condition is worsening by the day due to his sickness. In the time of Mihawk, it's ages removed from Whitebeard's prime. Now it all goes back to what I said earlier. Apprentice Whitebeard is only 2 years away from his peak, whereas Mihawk is below Oldbeard, who is decades from that. I think that logic is pretty clear cut, but low key though, the top 3 can be in any order. So I would love to hear your guys' interpretation, and if you think this list is ass, then leave a comment, we can argue about it, and you'll be wrong.